Ladies and gentlemen, boils and ghouls, it's the Scare Factor Podcast, Season 2.
What's going on, everybody? Tyler here with thescarefactor.com, and we are joined here today by my lovely wife, Nora. And oh yeah, there's Bryan and Tiphennie also. For those that don't know, Bryan is our Central New York team. Hi, Bryan.
Hi, Bryan.
Oh, hi. Yeah, I'm here.
And then Tiphennie is from Washington. How's it going over there in Washington, Tiphennie?
It's rainy today.
It's rain? No way it's raining.
Are you shocked about this news?
Right?
Yes.
All right, so today we are going to dive into trends that we noticed the last haunt season and things that we're just noticing in the haunt industry in general. What's some of the good things we're seeing? What's some of the bad things that we're seeing? And between all of the teams, we go to between 150 and 200 haunts per season, so we see quite a bit of stuff. But the question is, what do we see the most? And like I said, what of those things are good, what of them are bad, that sort of thing. So that's what we're going to cover today.
Cool. I'm just going to jump on the train right now and say that everything is terrible.
You think everything's terrible, Bryan?
Talk to Bryan on a different day.
Of course I do. I'm from New York. Everything sucks.
Well, I guess first off, we'll just start with the good things, start off with the good. And then maybe the folks that are curious to know what not to do, guess what? You're just going to have to be stuck with us here for about a half an hour until we get to that part of the show. So, so some of the good things we're seeing, particularly on the outside of the attractions, some good things that we're seeing are midways. Now, this is a really interesting one, and one of the first, there's actually several haunts that have been doing midways for quite a while, but we're noticing more and more start to adopt them and try to learn creative ways to keep people on location either before, during, or after the shows. So they're giving them more things to do, more reasons to hang out, and more reasons to be a destination. So, Nora, what are some of the things that we're seeing in midways?
We are seeing carnival games specifically, and some of them are like horror styled. So like the zombie brain shoot stuff. And then we're seeing like rides, some of them vintage rides. Some of them are like those, that gyro spear thing, the thing.
Yeah, like the NASA's gyro 0G simulator thing. It spins like three different directions all at once. Yeah.
One haunt had these little like receptacles where they had these doors that you opened and it told you different parts of their theme inside the haunt, but it was kind of like a guessing game. So that was pretty neat.
Yeah, kind of like when you go through like a museum or something and you go from exhibit to exhibit, they've got little interactive displays that tell you a little bit about the haunt. Yeah, that was cool.
We've seen a lot of different types of photo booth type style setups, selfie stations, things like that. Tarot card readers, axe throwing is something that's coming more popular. Like we've got that noted here as well as escape room editions. Those are generally things that we're seeing in those midways.
Just like little 5-minute escape rooms. And yeah, some haunts are expanding into the axe throwing year round. So that's something they're able to roll into their haunt season shows too.
Bryan, Tiphennie, you guys seeing anything additional in the midways?
We're seeing like those last ride simulators, like the coffin simulator, right?
Oh yeah. We had a bunch of those here, but over the last probably 2 years, they've almost all disappeared.
Yeah, they were really, really prominent probably 5 to 7 years ago. Everybody got them. And then, yeah, it seems like we're on the downhill trend of those over here in the Midwest areas.
Well, if I recall, the graphics on those were not that good because it was all like computer generated. So it wasn't like an actual video that you were watching. So, I'm sure it got outdated because, you can play a better game on your home PC.
I think the other thing that happens with that last ride simulator is that the throughput is a challenge. So essentially, like the last ride, you could only have like one person, and however long the experience is, I think it's like 10 minutes. Like that's a bottleneck of throughput. Whereas being able to do some of the other things that you're saying, like axe throwing or kind of like the carnival type games, much faster throughput because you could do multiple groups together. Doesn't require you to have multiple like setups for this. I think that's probably why you don't see it as much anymore, but I meant that whole video thing is also a good point. I've never
Yeah.
participated, so I'm not really quite sure.
Right. Yeah, there was only one, maybe two haunts that we'd ever been to that were using them that actually like hacked the software and learned how to make their own videos and make them unique and reprogram the rides to kind of match and that sort of thing. But yeah, very, very few and far between.
Yeah, and then Waverly Hills down here, when their haunt was open, they had a dual casket ride simulator where two people could do it, but still, like Tiffany's saying, you can only do one or two people at max. In an escape room, sometimes those can do like 6. So,
Right. One of the other things that I've seen, at least at one haunt, was a very unique like audio experience where you went into a small room, almost like it was a 5-minute escape. They told you to sit down, and there's, I don't know, 4 or 5 wheelchairs in there. And so they strap you down into the wheelchair, and the lights go out, and you listen to a story, and you pretty much become the main character in this short little 5 or 10-minute audio experience. And, you know, so there's lights and sounds and stuff that go along with it, and it ends basically with you getting thrown into an incinerator.
Oh, that's freaking
Nice.
cool.
mm-hmm.
We only saw one thing like that, I think, up here. Only one haunt had it, and I think it's because the vendor they got it from only made one, so they only, you know, they had the only one that was ever made, and it was in a trailer, so it was mobile, but you would walk in there, and like you said, there was 3 or 4 chairs. These weren't wheelchairs, but they would go in there, and you weren't blindfolded, but it was in an enclosed trailer, so it was pitch black, and they had like this center thing, Oracle, yeah, I think they called it, and then you wore headphones.
Oracle thing?
And I don't think they strapped you to the chair. They might have.
I think you had to wear a seatbelt.
You had to wear a seatbelt or something. And then, like, the headphones would sound like somebody was creeping up behind you, and they would have, like, these little pneumatic cylinders, little teeny tiny things, and, like, you would think that it was like a slasher or somebody breaking into your house, something like that, and you were stuck in there defenseless, whatever. And then, like, right when the guy was right behind you, this little air cylinder would come out and poke you in the back like they stabbed you, something like that. That was...
Mm-hmm. It was really cool. It was almost like VR, but the opposite. So you couldn't see anything, but you felt and heard everything.
Yeah, it was all sensory except for visual. And they'd have like the little air whips around your legs, so you'd think there was like bugs and stuff crawling on you. They had like 4 different little simulations that they would do, and yeah, that was a lot of fun.
So I've seen that in like a year-round haunted house. The shotgun thing behind your head, and they had rats. And so you would hear them like mentioning like, oh, be careful of the plague rats or something like that. And then all of a sudden you feel like this bump go underneath your seat because we were in benches. And so it was like one of those things that I thought was like pretty cool because that was like the only time I saw it. But I don't know. It's like, again, it's one of those year-round haunts where less actor-driven, more only the video and animatronics and stuff like that. So
yeah, we've seen bands and other types of entertainment too, and some are also adding in like different types of gift shops or vendors that are selling different things. In American Horrorplex's Midway kind of area last year, they had all kinds of horror-related vendors. They had a bug bus set up where you could go through and like look at different types of bugs on display. And they had a petting zoo, which at first we were like, a petting zoo at a haunted house? But he said his customers loved it. So that's interesting. And I guess it just gives people more things to do.
What kind of things were you petting?
They had goats.
Like, like they were little baby pigs, like little bitty.
Oh.
Yeah. And little bitty goats, like they had a whole little arena of goats. I think it was just the goats and the
Oh,
pigs,
my
if I remember
goodness.
correctly. They were so
I
cute.
can't remember. It was,
I want to go now.
right? I can't remember what the name of the people were, but it was some kind of sanctuary for
Mhm.
critters that had, you know, some kind of deformities. You know, it was like a rescue kind of place.
So that petting zoo kind of goes into something that I've been noticing about Midways is like there's more family friendly entertainment and kind of the concept of like making it a whole family night. It's not necessarily scary, but it's Halloweeny. So I've seen like pumpkin patches like overnight though.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right. So you go to a haunted house, you pick up your pumpkin with your family, and then you go on. It's not really like the photo op situation. They do have like photo ops set up, but I've been noticing more and more of that where that's kind of the concept is like you do these like kind of activities or the carnival games that you were explaining. Like there's ones that are like less gory and more kind of cutesy. Which is fine. It's fun.
Yeah. Somebody was asking us the other day if their midway consisted of more of the Halloween / family friendly stuff rather than like scary and more spooky, if that would decrease their atmosphere score. And we were kind of telling them as long as it's Halloween related, we don't see like us as the scare factor, I guess, doesn't see anything personally wrong with that because it's kind of, promoting the people to do all the things and get more people there. Like if you've got all that stuff going on, now you can bring your kids there for them to do something and you're going to get more customers that way. So we think it's better for the business. But if you've got something going on that's not Halloween related, and like we had been to a haunt before where in their midway, they had professional bikers doing tricks and stuff on bikes, that wasn't really related.
It was a little off the wall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think, there's a good way and a bad way to do that too. If you're structuring your whole grounds as like it's a late night fall festival, but we also have a haunted house if you want to go do that, I think that's probably a better way to do it rather than like, hey, come to our haunted house. And then afterwards, like, oh, we've got some fall festival stuff going on. I think that's a less good way to do that. Not to say that like it's a completely wrong or bad way to do it. I just think there's better ways to structure the whole thing. Haunted Overload they don't really have a lot going on, but like they have their little, vending barn, if you will. And so there's like a snack counter. You can buy some stuff at their little gift shop. You can get apple cider that, comes from that farm. And I mean, it's really great, because it's like, you could go up there with your family and not do the haunt at all. And like you'd have a couple of things to do. Whereas Fright Kingdom, they have a little bit of a midway afterwards. They have this huge animatronic outside that's really cool to watch. And they have a few vendors and stuff, but like you have to go all the way through the haunt to get into that section. So, it's a little bit of give and take there.
And a lot of it probably depends on how you started too.
Right, true. I think I would agree that like as long as that outside fall festival thing is Halloween or fall in general related, I think that helps to boost the their atmosphere score. But again, like I think personally I would take away a little bit if it's like if you're advertising as, hey, come to our haunted house and then we have this stuff afterwards. Versus, hey, come to our fall festival, which has all this other cool stuff going on.
I've seen haunts do both, like try to appeal both to adults and children. Like they'll run 2 different like advertisements, if that makes sense. So like they'll have and promote like the fall festival, specifically like targeting families, and have like promotional materials for that fall festival, even the overnight version of it. And then they still like hawk up the horror, Halloween-y, haunted house, spookier, older kids kind of thing too.
Right. Yeah. Like having it just as an attraction that you can do at that fall festival.
Yeah, but they don't mention the fall festival. So they run 2 separate ad sets, if that makes sense.
I got you. So they're advertising the haunt as its own thing.
Yeah.
And they're advertising the fall fest as its own thing.
Yeah, depending on like what audience you are. So I've seen that before at like a couple of haunts, and I thought that was like pretty intuitive. Because one of the things too, like you kind of see or people ask me a lot is that like parents or whatever, like their kids want to go through the haunt, however the parents don't, and they don't want to be scared. And so they're like, is the midway spooky? Is there like a place that I could just chill out? And so that's kind of the benefit of having like the Harvest Festival type midways, is that again there's kind of something for everyone.
Absolutely.
So
lots of chances to upsell those parents that don't want to go through the haunt. And absolutely.
And like Land of Illusion, kind of over by us in Ohio, they have like 6 haunted attractions on site. But then one night, like they had the guy that does Cupid Shuffle, they had him there. So they do like big concerts, and they did like the world's Guinness record for having the most people doing the Cupid Shuffle at one time. Like they were going for that record. So it brought all these like Gen Zs to their haunt that wanted to participate in that. And then those people, of course, stuck around and did the haunt too. And then I think one year they did a big fireworks show on their opening night, and that brought a ton of people in there. And they do the midget wrestling a lot, which Tyler and I were kind of like a little weird about at first, being at a haunted attraction. But once we were watching it, it's freaking hilarious. So, I mean, people were just like getting food and sitting around their bonfires and watching that, and then they'd go get in line for a haunt. So all of it
this kind of folds into like another point, like we were talking about, was kind of like an increase of those like pre-show entertainment. Either having opening ceremonies or having like this event included along with the haunt. I know like there's a haunt in Michigan that has like local radio stations have broadcast nights, which is always really cool. Or they'll have a sponsor give away something or be there, kind of like the first 100 people that show up for the night type of thing. But that stuff is all, I haven't ever seen it like be bad. Like it's all kind of like really, really fun, and it draws people who may or may not normally go to haunted houses like into this kind of like environment, kind of like what you were just saying with like a whole bunch of Gen Z and trying to go ahead and be a part of this world record scenario. Like how many of them possibly stayed and actually went to the haunt or stayed and loitered around in the midway after all that was done, right?
Exactly.
So like other things that we're seeing.
Yeah, speaking of midways and stuff and things to do outside of the haunts, it kind of segues us into like time ticketing and virtual queues, that sort of thing, which a lot of haunts are starting to refine a little bit after all the COVID stuff. A lot of haunts adopted it during COVID to try to keep line waits down and that sort of thing, and the amount of people on site at a time, and with varying success, of course, because it's such a new thing to the haunt industry. But yeah, a lot of haunts are still keeping it around, and when used well, that can allow folks to continue to roam around, at least with the virtual queues, and still take advantage of some of the midway stuff like we were just saying. Time ticketing, not so much in and of itself, because it still requires you to get into the queue line. So then at that point, unless you have some kind of number system or something where you can call out a group as soon as they're ready to go in, then they don't really get to take advantage of much of the midway stuff until they're either before they get in line or after they get out of the haunt. But yeah, are you guys seeing that sort of stuff being used out in your areas?
Yeah, so I'm seeing time ticketing, but it's not being executed very well. What I'm seeing is I can go online, I can buy a ticket for 7 p.m., let's say, and then I get there, I don't know, 6:45, they go, oh yeah, sure, go on in, right? You know, they're not really sticking to those times on the tickets, and, you know, to a certain degree, it's like, why did you even bother selling a ticket for that time if you're going to tell someone with a 9:15 ticket, sure, go on in at 7?
I'm kind of seeing the same thing, except kind of opposite, if that makes sense. So we could go ahead and purchase time ticketing, but it's not really executed well where they're actually getting the throughput that they kind of projected and estimated. So like I've purchased tickets for like the start of like earlier in the night or something like that, because I'm trying to hit up multiple haunts. And so I'll go ahead and get an early start, except we don't actually go through the haunted house until like 2-3 hours later, because we're still in lines. So yeah, normally in general with like time ticketing that I've seen, particularly like last season, was you're still waiting in a line, which that's kind of the point of time ticketing, is like you go in, you like go in 15 minutes early, they go ahead and go through everyone that's scheduled in that time block, and then they go on to the next group. But
Right. And I think the idea of time ticketing is that 7 p.m. or whatever time you bought for, that's the time you get in line, right? However long the line is going to take it's whatever. But, I think that's the idea is you should be getting in line at 7 or 8 or whatever.
yeah, for sure. But yeah.
Are you guys seeing a lot of the hour time slots? We're seeing like 1 hour increments and maybe half-hour increments. Are you guys seeing any like 15 minutes or anything shorter?
It depends on the haunt. Sometimes I see 15s. Sometimes I see half an hours, but they're based on 15s. So I'll see like a 7:15 and a 7:45.
Gotcha. Yeah, they're just not at the top and the bottom of the hour, right?
Mine is mostly the 15 in the hour that I've been seeing, kind of like what you're saying. Not 15 an hour, sorry. The 30-minute in the hour.
Well, speaking of virtual queues and things to do while you're not in line, in the midways and all that sort of thing, that brings us to the things that we're seeing while we are in line. The pre-show entertainment, queue entertainment in general. We've got a few shows out here that are doing like opening ceremonies and stuff. Fear Fair comes to mind. They do a big fireworks show and fire show, and they bring an actor out on a stage, which is really cool, but like you only see it if you're there at opening time.
The haunts down south, I think, are doing parades where they take all the actors out and they kind of show everybody that's there at opening time, all the characters before they go into the haunt. So we haven't seen that yet, but we have seen several opening ceremonies where they do something similar.
Well, the one at Fear Fair, as soon as the fireworks and all that stuff's over, yeah, they do kind of a mob type of thing where they release all the characters out into the queue for, maybe 5-10 minutes or so and terrorize everybody, but then everybody loads back into the haunt and it's time to get rolling again. So
aside from that, though, are we seeing anything else outside more commonly?
I all I'm really seeing as far as like, in the lines is some queue actors. And even those are starting to go away, especially within the last 2 years, because, nobody really wants to get that close to patrons because God knows where those patrons have been.
Right.
So like in the past, I've seen like, a magician doing some sleight of hand, some close up magic, that sort of thing. But, beyond that, I'm, for the most part, queue actors are just, kind of roaming around. You can take a picture with them. That's really about it. I'm not seeing a lot going on in lines, and I'm really a bad person to ask about how do you make that better, because like, I don't have any better ideas.
Yeah, other than the queue actors themselves, some of the queue actors we see have like what you would call a specialty, I guess, and they do like sliding. So if they have like a paved or a concrete platform where they can work around, and a lot of them are getting into the sliding stuff. There's one close to us in Lexington, actually Nicholasville, Kentucky, and they actually paved their whole midway just for the sliders, believe it or not. And like probably 2 or 3 times a night or once an hour or something like that, they'll set up like almost like a runway type of thing, and they'll put like limbo poles across the thing, and they'll try doing limbo as they're sliding underneath, or they'll try jumping over people. I think
we have a video of them jumping over Tyler. Yeah.
They lined like 2 or 3 of us up on the ground laying on our backs, and they did sliders and come running after us, and they jump over us. Yeah, that was little unnerving, but
we're not seeing. I'm trying to think. I know we've seen trivia several times, the DJs, but I think the DJs is more atmosphere than it is like actual entertainment.
Right.
Like it's entertaining, but unless they're like giving away free t-shirts and stuff, it's kind of just atmosphere. But yeah, I think that's about all we're really seeing. Well, there's Demon House up in Pennsylvania. They have the whole virtual queue thing, but it's not like on your phone. They just give you a number, and then they have a bell system, and they ring this really loud bell, and then they call out your number when they ring the bell. And when you're in their midway, they have a big giant movie theater set up. So
it's off to the side, yeah, but you're free to roam wherever, so they technically don't really have a queue, because as soon as they ring your bell, or the bell, they don't ring your bell.
They might inside.
They can ring my bell all day long.
Right? But as soon as they call you, it's your turn to go in. There is no wait other than roaming around the queue area, which we really, really, really like. There's them. And one haunt nearby is called Horror Hike, and they basically just made a PowerPoint presentation with different numbers, and they go to CVS and print out little 4x6 cards with a number on them, all haunt themed, And then whenever you see your number on the screen, you go up there and get in line. You're the next group in, which is freaking genius to me. They've got a campfire set up. You can go to their concession stand. You can kind of look at your number and look at the screen and tell how much time you got.
They have a full giant maze that you can go do.
Oh, yeah.
That's cool, yeah.
So the whole number system, I really hope a lot of haunts start examining that sort of thing, because it is, as soon as they say what the deal is to their customers, they're like, oh, this is great. They've never had bad feedback from it. So,
or that's what they've told us.
That's what they've told us. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the big challenge there is just keeping up on making sure you keep that flow moving. So you got to have 2 or 3 people that are, tasked solely to handling that process.
So some of the cool things that I've seen, like with the Q Line Entertainment, is having like monitors. So you mentioned seeing like kind of like trivia, but I've seen them play like trailers of their attractions, or kind of like clips to like start immersing you into the story. I actually have a question for you guys of both Bryan and Tyler and Nora. Has anybody seen the like kind of like a QR code search or like the ghost hunting app in line as a part of like Line Entertainment?
You're talking about like a scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
I've never seen it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, we've also heard of it and seen it at Transworld, but we haven't been to a haunt that I can remember that was actively utilizing it.
Yeah. I only had...
It sounds fun.
Right? I've only had one where it does like the QR code. So you scan the QR code and it goes to like a YouTube video, and kind of like the same thing. It like peppers like the story. And the YouTube video is like only a few seconds long, but it's not really a scavenger hunt. There's like literal signs just up and being like, scan me. So yeah. It's not really like challenging, but the same thing is...
I think that would be a lot more fun and like add a lot more mystery to the whole thing if you had to actively search for them, when you have it as an Easter egg sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, you get Nora in on a scavenger hunt and she's great for the night.
Or even just as Easter egg hunts. That's good too.
Yep. Literal Easter egg hunts. So I think that covers most of the stuff that we're seeing outside of the haunts. So let's segue to some of the good things we're seeing inside the haunts. And some things that we've started seeing this past year, at least in a few haunts, starting to take off, can't word, is combining multiple soundtracks per scene. So like really putting an effort on sound design, combining like what their props are doing, like their animatronics, because they're coming out going rah, 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 making their noises, but then they're making the sound to where it kind of ramps up as it goes through a scene too, and making them really super specific to the scenes that you're in. So like if you're in an asylum, you might hear patients in commotion and stuff like that, or like wheelchairs creaking around, that sort of thing. And yeah, really putting a lot of focus on sound design. Are you guys seeing any improvements like that?
I can't say that I'm seeing a lot of improvements, but I am seeing just like better ambient audio that's, being played throughout as a whole. Just more professionally produced sounding, ambient sounds. I'm not seeing anything that's super specific to the scene necessarily in a lot of places, but I am just getting, I don't know, I guess creepy ambient sound that's being played throughout the whole place.
For me, it's kind of the last ride situation again. I think, again, technology is progressing so much. It's becoming more and more accessible to be able to have those like multiple soundtracks or being able to layer sounds. Like people are not more aware of it, but they know that that sound kind of like fills up a space and makes it feel less empty. And so they're kind of focusing more on that. And it's more affordable. Like, again, the equipment's starting to become more and more easily accessible.
Right. And not only that, but like, somebody on their staff is more than likely going to have the skills or the ability to go in and, help curate these sounds and, help to kind of fit them into the scenes where they want to put them.
Exactly. Yeah. Creating more of that immersive experience.
Right.
So another thing we're seeing is, of course, there's more and more holiday haunts showing up, and they're doing a much better job around here, anyway, at redecorating those haunts on the inside for those shows. So when they first kind of started doing like a Christmas show around here, we'd see a few characters and stuff wearing like your Santa hat and things like that. And now they're going in, and some of them are actually like redoing some of their scenes specifically for these shows. So that's been really cool to see that.
Yeah. Terror Cabin here in New York kind of did something like that, where they did a Christmas haunt, and they went through a number of their scenes. They put up lights, they put up a tree. They made it look a little bit more Christmassy inside.
Yeah, it's more of a treat when they're not just stringing tinsel all over the place, when they actually put a little bit of thought into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're definitely seeing not more haunts, but we have a Krampus group out here. And so one of the haunts, Nile Nightmares, always does this like Christmas theme where they redo their scenes to literally be all Christmas. And that type of stuff is like really cool, but particularly like the tie-in with like the Krampus group, because the Krampus group kind of like goes and like tours around to like different areas and events, like holiday events. And so a lot of it's kind of like drumming up, again, promotional thing for the haunt. So it makes sense, but I kind of like that, like partially like haunt bleeding into holiday season kind of territory.
Well, switching gears to some of the things that we're seeing that aren't so good trends throughout the industry. I guess we'll start back on the outside of the haunts again. There's a lot of haunts out there that still have websites and social media presences that make it really difficult to find their information. So, like, there's Wix, there's several different things, I believe, that allow you to create a free website. Now, I'm sure you may have to pay some kind of annual subscription, maybe not. But there's really no reason not to have a good web presence. They've, like you said, Tiphennie, technology's come such a long way that this stuff is really just drag and drop user friendly. Like, you really should be able to figure out how to get in there and like keep your stuff updated, make sure you've got quick and easy ways to get your location, your hours, your dates, all that sort of thing. And like a rule that we try to use with Scare Factor, and that is pretty industry standard for just online businesses, that like you should be able to get any information you need within like 3 clicks of your homepage. So like you can create new tabs at the top, to quickly get to different sections of the site, and you can build an FAQ page for a lot of your commonly asked questions, direction. I mean, those are just some of the most basic things, but then, while you're at it, there's really no reason why you can't go ahead and dig into your theme and some, character introductions and that sort of thing. And with Facebook and Instagram, and now TikTok's taken off, and all these different social platforms, they make it really, really easy to get that information out to your people for free, so there's not really a barrier to entry there, but we're still seeing a lot of folks that are having trouble getting that information out there. Any comments?
Yeah, so I've been seeing this trend with websites, and it's kind of good and kind of bad. It fits into both categories. It's the templates that are made by, I can't remember the name of the company that's doing it. I think it's like Sinister Designs or something to that effect. All the pages look the same. And on one hand, I really like that, because if I'm trying to find information about a haunt, I've seen this template before. I know where to go to find their address, their operating hours, how to buy tickets, all that good stuff. But on the other side of that,
are you talking about maybe Chad Savage?
Sinister Visions.
Sinister Visions, that's what it was. Yeah. So, but on the other side of that, the bad side of that is like it's all the freaking same. It's
right.
Like, my God, like I want to see something a little bit different here. Like change more than just the background art. So like I said, it's really good for the ease of use, because I've seen this before. I'm familiar with this layout. I know where to go to find the information I need. But like, if I'm looking at your website, like, how do I know your website is different from, the guy down the road, his website? Because like you're putting the same. I liken it to death metal band logos. Like, how do you even know what band's album you're listening to if you're looking at the cover? Because it's all the same, like, over stylized sort of logo, right? So, you know, like, you kind of get that with the haunt websites where it's the same over stylized, you know, really great artistry and really great, you know, pictures and stuff that they're putting there. But like, oh my God, it all blends together.
They're also equally awesome. You can't, yeah.
Yeah, right. You know, it's like when everybody's awesome, it's like, yeah, okay, whatever. It's all kind of the same at a certain point, you know.
They don't have a lot of their own actual branding in them.
Right. Yeah, that's a lot of it. You know, some of them may use, you know, photos or art that was created specifically for them, but like it's so similar to the photos and art that was created specifically for another haunt, you know, because it's all styled pretty much the same.
Yeah, and it could make it a little hard to choose which one you want to go to when they have that on there too. Like if you're going to two within the same city or something, but you only have time for one, when you look at both of those, you're like, are they owned by the same person?
Right, yeah, and that's something that I've definitely grappled with is like, are these owned maybe by the same parent company, or like what's going on here? Because, you know, that's a big part in deciding, you know, when I go to a haunt just recreationally, because like, oh, hey, it's Friday, let's go to a haunt. You know, I'm looking at websites, I'm looking at social media, I'm looking to see who's got, in my mind, to be the best show based on what they're presenting to the public, you know, online.
Exactly. And what's really frustrating is, like, say you get these folks that don't feel like they're comfortable operating a website. Sure, they've got their free Facebook and social pages and that sort of thing, but they don't put their address or sometimes even their names or contact information or anything in their about section. So they've got it buried about 3 weeks ago down their news feed, and you got to scroll because they're too busy promoting their stuff and not making it accessible to where they even go, even if they do get your attention. So
or what kills me about that is like there's no mention of the city. I've been seeing this come up a lot on Facebook with, you know, non-haunt related things. I saw an advertisement. It was like, you know, Brew and Bowl. And I thought, wow, this sounds awesome. Like, I've never heard of this brewery, though. Where is this bowling alley? Turns out it's in, like, South Carolina or something. And then I look at the comments, and there was no mention of where this place was. They just assumed that if you saw it, you knew where it was, which is totally not the case. Because looking at the comments, there was somebody commented and they were like, oh, hey, Bob Smith, let's go do this thing on Friday. I don't know, must be a new bowling alley in town. And then like Bob Smith commented, he's like, this is nowhere near us.
Right.
You know, and it's like, you know, so like, you know, on that end, like if you're going to put up your promotional pictures and stuff, that's awesome. Try to put like, you know, a general vicinity of where you are. I'm not saying like you got to put 123 Main Street in Buffalo, New York, but like maybe put on there, you know, coming to Buffalo the weekend of the 8th, you know, put something that tells me where this is.
Yeah, I mean, and Facebook gives you the opportunity, depending on how you set up your page. I mean, if you're a physical business, you can put your hours on there, and folks should know, oh, okay, they're not open right now, so they're not going to be pestering you about, you know, oh, hey, you guys up, which you're still going to get that anyway, but it'll at least minimize it.
Yeah, right.
And then, like, I mean, I think we see it a lot. I mean, home haunts are horrible about it because they don't want everybody driving past their place and bugging them at their personal residence. I get that. But you could also eliminate that by creating your full-blown business page and, like I said, putting your hours on there, temporarily closed, or, you know, something that shows, hey, we're not doing this right now.
Creating the Google side of it's free as well. So
Oh, yeah, Google Business, yeah. Anywhere where you can get mail, you can create a Google Business listing and have complete control of that. So yeah, there's really no reason no reason to make it difficult for somebody to figure out where you are these days, but it's still kind of a thing. And
unless that's your whole thing is like, it's a mystery, you got to find the place and like,
sure. Yeah. Like Blackout and those kind of places. Yeah.
You know, but like, that's going to be such a rare occurrence to where like you're trying to create this exclusive, like you stumbled upon this place in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night. Like, the chances are that's not what you're after. You want to sell tickets. You want people showing up at your gate. And if you want that, you need to tell these people where you are.
Exactly. And even on the experiences like you're talking about where they're trying to create a mystery, those people have actually thought about it enough to at least mention like the city and state, like you were saying. They just won't give the address, and they'll be like, contact us to get the info. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll say something like, in the woods of Townsville. Okay, so like we know it's in Townsville, USA. And okay, so like then you have to go through their socials, their website, whatever, to piece together exactly where they are. But like at that point, they're curating that specifically so that you have to go search for it. There is an answer, but you may have to go solve a puzzle to get it. Whereas, like I said, 99% of haunts, that's not what you want.
You need to be able to find it as quickly and easily as possible.
Right. Yeah. Like you said, 3 clicks. If I can't find it in 3 clicks, I'm not coming to your haunt. So like other things, kind of branching off from the website, going, to the haunt site itself, places are not offering time ticketing. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because like if you're not going to abide by the times there anyway, like there was no point. But, at the same time, like if you know that like you're going to have a huge crowd at 7, well, maybe try to break them up into 2 different groups, a 7 and a 7:30, or break them up further than that. But, there are places and they're just like, yeah, sure, show up and buy a ticket. And it turns out that sometimes, or a lot of times, the places that are doing that are saying we're cash only. And I understand there are some legitimate, with heavy quotes around the word legitimate, reasons you might want to be cash only. Hell, I used to drive Uber. I know that cash is king. But like you have to bear in mind that over the last 2 years or so, people are really apprehensive about handling physical cash. Especially if you're going to be getting change back or whatever the case is, handing money over, that's not such a big deal for me. But like, I really don't like getting change from someone because like, I don't know where that's been. There's this whole thing on Reddit about ass pennies, people putting pennies up their fucking ass. I don't want to touch your goddamn ass pennies.
Ass pennies.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, no, it's like some sick power play or something. I don't get it, man. Like, but yeah, like I don't want to touch that. I have no idea where the hell that's been. Like, I don't even like going to the ATM to get money out, but sometimes I have to, and then on top of that, like they don't tell you that it's cash only. So you show up with your credit card and they're like, yeah, we're cash only. And then there's no ATM on site and you're SOL.
Yep, that's what's really bad. Or they require cash only parking, but don't tell you about that either.
God. Yeah, if I show up to a haunt that's on its own property that has space for parking and they're going to charge me for it, I'm not going to that haunt. I'm turning around and going somewhere else.
Yeah, it can be aggravating for sure.
I get it. Sometimes like you have to charge for parking. You're in a metropolitan area. They don't have their own parking area. But
if you're going to charge for it or your local lot to do, at least put it as a warning on your page. Like, hey, this local lot charges for parking, but they're not affiliated with us or whatever that may be.
Yeah, right. Like just be aware. Parking is going to cost you probably about this much. Make sure you have them, make sure you can pay for that in some way.
And that goes kind of back to the whole website and social stuff. Just make it known before we get there, Because, of course, I guess a lot of people take for granted that it's not a thing, too. So, like, unless somebody deliberately goes out looking for it, it may be a little difficult to find. But, I mean, I would think that if you were going someplace new, you would probably at least browse the FAQ section or see some kind of about section on your homepage or somewhere on it. At least like if you're buying tickets online, it would be somewhere on your stub. Hey, by the way, when you come here to this address, make sure you bring some cash. There's all kinds of ways to get the information across. And that was the thing too, is not offering online ticketing. Not necessarily time ticketing, but just online ticketing.
It is something we see.
So I've seen the opposite. Again, I feel like West Coast is opposite of everything. So I've seen where they don't necessarily accept credit card at like the venue itself, but you have to like pay through their website. And sometimes that's challenging if the location doesn't have like Wi-Fi and a good signal. Sometimes that could be challenging and very nerve-wracking because, yeah, my team, even in like personal life, like none of us carry cash ever. And so, yeah.
Yeah, we really don't either.
Yeah, I think it's a millennial thing at this point, right? It's, how many millennials do you know that carry cash all the time? It's generally the generations before us that are more likely to carry cash. The Gen Z kids, like, they don't carry cash. They don't know what the hell that is. If I can, everywhere I go, and I love the fact that most of the world has gone to this, or at least most of the places I'm going here in the United States, they all support the tap to pay. You know what I hate? When I go to a big event, a concert, a festival, an amusement park, whatever it might be, I hate having to carry my wallet around because I don't want to lose it, right? And those are the places where you're likely to get pickpocketed, whatever. You might lose it, might fall out, you never know. But I'll tell you what's always in my front pocket, my phone. And I've always got my hand on my phone. So, it's the sort of thing where I love the fact that so many people are going to tap to pay.
And the NFC payments, like you're saying, you can do it straight from your phone and not even need a card at all.
Yeah, because I link my card to my phone.
This reminds me of something that we missed up in the trends that we've seen that are really good for the attractions. We've seen several just last year that did do a QR code thing, but it was in their ticket waiting line. You could go ahead and scan a QR code that was hanging on the wall and purchase tickets. And once you got those, you could skip the ticket line and go on to the ticket taker.
Oh, it was brilliant. They had a little girl walking around. Hey, did you see this? You have to do this waiver. And she just had a little piece of paper in her hand, walking up and down the queue. Hey, scan this code. You can go ahead and do this now. And it really did cut down on the wait line a lot.
Yeah, because sometimes, the wait line itself isn't so bad. It's the freaking line to get tickets.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think more haunts that are, putting those things out there, if there's a waiver you need to sign, if you're able to buy anything online ahead of time, I think more people want to do that. I think more people would rather buy it online at home because they know, like, it's going to take everybody, let's say, an average of 2 minutes to go through this whole process, whether you're at the ticket window or you're at home or whatever it is. Wouldn't you rather take that 2 minutes at home and, buy what you need to buy, sign whatever it is you need to sign? And then when you get there, you go up to the ticket taker and you show them the code, they scan it, and boom, you're in. Now, people like us, we like to get, the souvenir ticket, the nice printed, laminated, take it home kind of ticket stub. You don't necessarily get that with those. But I'm sure if you showed them your thing, you could ask, they'd probably give you one, to take home.
Yeah, some of them, and that's kind of a good and a bad thing, because sometimes even if you get your ticket online, they'll still require you to stand in the ticket line and visit the booth and get your online ticket redeemed, which they can swap you out for your Boca ticket at that point, the big printed out ticket.
Right.
But then at the same time,
I've seen one haunt up here that does a separate line for that. So if you bought it online, just hop in this line, they scan it, and it goes by really quick.
That's the kicker there, is not everybody is doing the separate lines. So that's kind of the pet peeve on this topic is, what's the benefit of buying them online? The idea is to save time.
If you have to stand in the line. Yeah, there's a local haunt to us, and I sent a friend there, and she came back and said, well, we bought our tickets online because it said right on their website, save time and buy tickets online. So we did, and then they routed us right to that ticket booth where we stood for over an hour. And I'm like, yep, they've been doing that for years, and I don't understand it.
Yeah, because, they probably, when they set it up, they thought, okay, we'll do this and see how many ticket sales we get, and then if we get enough, we'll set up a separate line, and they just never set up the separate line. I get it. You're trying to save money. You got to staff someone to work that separate line. You have to train them on what to do with those online tickets. But, come on, the time saved is well worth it.
It's got to trickle down to at least some good word of mouth later on as people learn, hey, this actually works at this place. You can get right in and out, buy your tickets online. And
even if a haunt's really, really good, if Tyler and I are personally going and paying for it, we're probably going to avoid the ones that are difficult to get into because they have all these different steps that you have to take before you can just get in line. So
I think, too, haunts that are, selling more and more tickets online and they're doing the separate lines, eventually they could probably migrate all but one line to online ticket sales. Hey, show up here, jump in one of these lines, we scan it, we give you your ticket, and you're gone. But they still would have a line for physical ticket sales. It would shorten all of your lines, no problem.
Yeah, we've seen a few kiosks for that.
Yeah. Oh, my God, a kiosk. Scan the thing. It prints out a ticket. You don't even have to deal with a person. You know how great that would be?
I know the kiosks are expensive, but geez, I would think over time that asset would become worth itself.
Oh, it would pay for itself. Hell, you can rent those And then you can custom order like sides that just, bolt on, or they're magnets and they just slap right on the sides, and it's got all your custom branding on there. You could rent that for a month. And like, yeah, it's going to cost you some money for it, but like the money that you save on staff that has to, tend to a ticket line and do that, I think would pay for that in one weekend.
Well, and really all it is a fancy box with a tablet and a printer.
That's all it is. And it's not, you don't even need a printer, right? You just need something to dispense tickets that you've already loaded in.
Back to the offering online ticketing. If you don't do the online ticketing, get those ATM machines, because I think you can also rent those, just like the kiosks.
Oh, yeah, you can rent ATMs. And any sort of kiosk, machine, that sort of thing. There is a company probably within an hour of you that rents them out. Because think about how many events you've been to, some festival that was only there for one weekend, and they had ATMs all over the place. They had these kiosks, whatever it was. There's a company that rents them. I guarantee it. Same thing with porta potties. You can rent those for, a week, a month, a day, whatever you need. You can rent them. You don't have to own them privately. I mean, you can, and sometimes like it might be worth it if you think like it's just cheaper to own this outright, but
you can also have them cleaned out weekly.
Yeah. That's highly recommended. Sometimes I feel like the ones we find haven't been cleaned out all season, but yeah.
Oh, I've run into a few that seemed that they were never cleaned out from the day they were installed.
Those kind of match the ones that are sitting on the edge of the hill and they look older than anything on the property, and you're like, yeah.
It's kind of leaning over and
yeah, it's a wooden box and there's a little moon carved into the door.
Those are the nice ones around here. At least you don't feel like you're going to roll down the hill.
Hey, don't go talking shit about my plumbing.
Right.
Well, switching gears to some of the trends we're seeing inside that aren't so great is dialogue. Now, I don't know if like the focus has just kind of shifted away from it, but some haunts are really, really good, and like they'll fire an actor on the spot if they say some of this stuff. But there's some out there that are still, they just can't get over the hump, and I don't know if it's probably just their hiring style, like they're doing volunteers, or they're just not as dedicated to this part of their actor training or something, but we're still seeing a lot of folks using the overused stuff like Get Out, Where Are You Going, Help Me, and
Fresh Meat,
yeah, all the stuff that, and as bad as it is for them to say it, Nora and I will go counteract back to them, and I can't remember who it was or where we were, but Nora, we were probably halfway through, maybe second week of October or something. We'd been to enough places and heard it enough times that we were starting to get over it like real freaking fast. And somebody said, "Get out," or something like that, and Nora flat out loud said to him, "I ain't fucking getting out of here," or something. She lit into him right there inside the haunt.
I did. I said, "I ain't fucking getting out of nowhere," because we were in the haunt for like not even 2 minutes, and this guy was like, "Get out," and I was like, "I'm not fucking getting out." No, stop telling people that. Like it just rubbed me the wrong way, because we'd been hearing it all season, and it was just right there towards the beginning of the haunt, and I was like, seriously.
Or you get the little girl that says, "You want to play a game?" And we're like, "Yeah, what are we going to play?" And they're like,
"I don't know.
Hide and seek," and they go run away.
That's fine.
Yeah,
really.
Better than nothing.
But when they say, "I don't know," or they just stare at you.
Yeah, that's where the problem is.
I think that line specifically, if you have a child who's in a role like that, it definitely makes sense for them to want to play some schoolyard game. I get that, and it totally fits the character. But, maybe like structure that a little differently, maybe change it up. Hey, do you want to play hide and seek? And before you get a chance to answer, like, the kid's gone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That
like,
sort of thing.
Yeah, I guess we
like,
are.
Okay, I guess I'm playing hide and seek with the humanification of Annabelle. Great, awesome. Awesome. I didn't want to take my soul out of this place. Yeah, no.
One of the things that we tried to like kind of instill in actors was creating like 5 minutes worth of dialogue. And it's okay to like essentially be a broken track for those 5 minutes. But the concept is that you could kind of do like those words, like you said, like fresh meat or get out or do you want to play a game? But you have like follow up to do something for the time that people are in your room. And then you could kind of like reset or recycle again. Because the concept is like if you have conga lines, it kind of starts breaking down a bit. But like if you have like two groups that were near each other, in theory, the second group shouldn't hear you say the same thing that you said to the first group.
Yeah,
and so by
exactly.
having that like longer dialogue kind of pre-planned kind of helped with that, being able to like regurgitate that, and it sounds like you're saying different stuff to everyone that enters the room.
Yeah, right. Especially with like the fresh meat thing. I think it was actually Terror Cabin. They or Terror Field, whatever the fuck they're called. Terror Field, I think.
When you said Terror Cabin earlier, I was like, who?
I did. It's Terror Field. It's the one out in Clyde. It's really good.
Okay.
So like they have a character near the beginning that is this woman in a kitchen, and like that's her whole thing is like she's going to cook you up for dinner. She's going to cut you into little pieces and make Szechuan chicken out of your ass. And like that sort of character saying fresh meat kind of works to a degree, but like Tiphennie was just saying, like having more dialogue to go with that is essential, because like, hey, fresh meat. Okay, awesome, great. Yes, I'm fresh meat. I'm very fresh. Like I haven't been cooked yet. I haven't been butchered yet. Of course.
Or you could
I'm
have a big
fresh.
butcher going, fresh meat is yummy for the tummy. Weird shit like that. And you're like, oh, that
Yeah,
makes
right.
it creepy at that point.
Right, but like this character would go on and on about like her plans to like how she was going to butcher you and cook you and serve you. Like she had this whole thing planned out. Like this was her. I don't know if you've ever played the game where you sit around and you talk about like you're on death row, what's your last meal? Like she had this planned out how she was going to cook your ass up.
Nice.
But like it was that extra dialogue and that extra thought into it that went beyond like fresh meat into like, okay, I'm actually a little bit afraid of you now.
And I think it all kind of boils down to the management not going through and saying, can you please not say that? Say this instead or something.
Yeah, right. Some sort of training staff needs to be on top of that, right? And I get it. Not everybody is able to like understand why you can't just go help me or get out or whatever. It is a telltale sign of a better haunt when you hear that line and then they have something else to say.
A little bit of character development goes a long way. So something else that we're seeing inside the haunts also is particularly with some of the staffing shortages and stuff that we're seeing, a lot of haunts have started increasing the number of animatronics that they use, but because they've relied on actors so much, then maybe they're not using those animations quite to their full effectiveness. So like getting timing down and things like that. There's a haunt down here in Louisville that had is like a pharmacy type of room, and they did really good at putting like 3 or 4 different animations and gags that are in there, but they timed it for the 14-year-old girls that are sprinting through the room. So then
or that's what it seemed like.
Yeah, and
anyway.
then like when me and Nora showed up in there, they're like, "Oh wow, we saw all this stuff going on," and then like about the time we actually cleared the threshold into the room, it's a pretty decent sized room, probably 20 feet long and 8 or 10 feet wide, decent sized little room. But then like I said, as soon as we got actually into the room, everything had like already stopped because it was done and over. So
and those animations, yeah, they reset and they restart, and you can program them how you would like to. But once you program it for a night, it's probably set that way all night. And it's not like an actor that can look at a crowd and know that they need to move faster or get out of the way, or they can hang out longer with a group and interact a little bit or anything like that. So it's not the same as having actors, but we have haunts telling us it is.
It can be. But, kind of going back to episode 2, where we talked about different types of scares, the Jack and Jill scare comes up here. You can use an animatronic as your Jack or your Jill. You can have it be your distraction. You can have it be your main scare, whatever it is. And you can have an actor that's roaming between 4 or 5 different scenes. So, yeah, definitely having that good placement. But the use of it is so important here. And I don't think that enough thought is being given to the use in every case.
I mean, maybe we could see like possibly with kind of filling up actors and stuff, like maybe in like progressive years or following years, if this is like the trend, like getting that timing because I know like setting up new timing and new animatronics, like it's really, really hard because you do have the sprinters and then you do have people that like refuse to enter a room. And so you have to kind of like figure out where you're going to have pressure plates or where are you going to have the trip. I don't know
the
what
motion
those are called.
sensors or the lasers or whatever you're using to get it started. Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's kind of hard to figure out like where exactly do you want to trigger that? Because another thing that could happen, right, is if you do have an actor in the room and it's a Jack and Jill scare, the actor could be resetting and trigger the animatronic that goes on for like 2 minutes and then a group enters in. So,
That's true.
I know it's tricky. Like, I know it's really, really tricky. So I'd be really interested to see like what happens this year. And that if haunts do kind of like take note of like, yeah, this was a thing that we had a challenge with, and then kind of like more fine tune that, it might turn into a positive, maybe.
Yeah, it can for sure. It's just that we're seeing it in ways that it's not. Like we had one haunt last year tell us that I think he said he only utilized like 20% of his cast from the previous season on purpose.
Yeah.
And he said he was buying over $100,000 worth of animations for this year, or large animatronics. But when we were there last year, he was like, oh, how'd you guys like all the animatronics we put in there? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, the one wasn't working. It just quit working on us. But we're fixing on replacing all of our actors with those. And I'm like, just staring at him like
please don't.
But you just told us that the one that you spent the most money on is just sitting in there for me and Tyler and all your customers to see it not working because it just stopped working. So I'm like, I don't know.
It's really, really tough to fully automate a haunt with those things and still get the good quality scares, in my opinion.
Or you'd have to have so many of them to like keep them coming from all directions.
And not only that, but like, you don't want to break the immersion so much that somebody looks at it and goes, well, it's obviously an animatronic. You want something that somebody believes is actually happening, is, could be a real person maybe, or it's a real monster, whatever the case is. Like, you don't want those mechanical sounds necessarily. Sometimes you might, but, I think in most cases, you probably don't want, the sound of the air piston going off to actuate it, or you don't want, the sound of a motor kicking on that's going to, move something. So, that's the other challenge with animatronics is how do you make it believable without, investing $20,000 into a single animatronic.
Right. And I mean, as far as some of the mechanics goes, a lot of that can just be covered up with greater ambient sound, which can further, immerse you and be more controlling of how you experience a scene. Just make it louder into where you can't hear that stuff. But
it seems like the ones using that ambient sound we were talking about earlier, the sound everywhere is actually pretty loud, which there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But they don't get the sound bleed that way because they kind of make it to where it does do it on purpose.
Right. Yeah. If the sound is the same in every scene, who cares if it bleeds?
Yeah. And then when you get that multi-level sound, you walk into a cemetery and you're getting the creaking and everything of coffins for 3 scenes. But then, a gravedigger's digging a grave. You get all that stuff just in that room. It actually helps, I think, with the sound bleed of the shovel not going into the other area.
Some controlled sound bleed, yeah.
Well, a lot of that, too, is going to come back to, your infrastructure as a whole, and how do you soundproof certain areas, and, how do you allow bleed where you don't care if it comes through, and how do you prevent bleed when you do care? Sure, anybody can go through and soundproof a space. All you need to do is just add things that are going to absorb that sound, but let's say you do want some bleed coming through into the next scene. Well, how do you get the things you want going through and not get the things you don't want? That's where the challenge comes.
So some of the other trends that we're seeing, at least in Nora and I's area, there's still a lot of laser swamps hanging around. Most of them, I mean, they're kind of losing their wow factor for us because they've been going for
us, yeah.
We've been seeing them for at least 10 years.
But there's still tons of customers that probably don't.
Yeah, that's probably true. But, we see one, we're like, okay, where's the actor going to pop out from? Now, we do get excited when we see them that are done more believably. Like not all of them are using like the vegetation hanging from the ceiling and the sounds of the crickets and the frogs and that sort of thing. And a lot of them some of them are starting to double implement like the big alligator animatronics to, that's very effective when done well.
Yeah,
but if you just walk into a black room and you got a green laser, you're like, oh, that's underwhelming,
I mean, it can still be effective, but yeah, once you've seen it as much as we have. But we've got haunts like all within a very close proximity in several cities that they all have them. So their customers are seeing those things over and over. But another thing that we're seeing a lot more, and of course we've been seeing them anyway, but we've been seeing people do them more effectively, is the actomatronics. So like your big Gorgalore creature actomatronics that have, the big giant mouths that can literally bite you if they want to. We're seeing a lot more of those, and we're seeing haunts get a lot more creative at how they use those.
Oh, yeah. They've started figuring out how to make them longer. So, like, instead of just coming out 3 or 4 feet, they're running them down the full lengths of hallways and, like, actually being able to chase you with them for a while. So that's very good.
Mm-hmm. And a couple have multiple holes and walls. So once the creature comes and gets you at one angle, it can actually spin around in its own room and come and get you at another angle, so you're not expecting the double attack.
The people that are used to them aren't used to seeing them twice back to back like that, so that's a very creative use of them. Are you guys seeing any trends like that up in your areas, or
What are you seeing?
Common denominators?
Yeah, a lot of what I'm seeing, at least in New York, are haunts that like to pretend that they have a story. And they've got this novel on their website about the backstory, about, whatever the hell is supposed to be the theme. And then you show up and it doesn't really fit with what you read on the website. So like, it'll be like, oh, come visit the Museum of Oddities and all the things from other dimensions. And it's like, okay, I guess this kind of works. But like, if you just went into this saying, hey, it's a traditional haunted house, come get spooked, like that would be so much better, because I'm not going in expecting a story. That's
kind of like a vanity theme. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a lot of what I'm seeing there. Just in terms of an overall sort of thing, outside the haunts, I'm seeing a lot of, like food vendors are a really common thing here. And I was really surprised to learn that food vendors are not super common across the country. You guys are saying like you get food trucks if you're lucky. Like we have permanent vendors that have stalls set up at haunts, and it's the same vendor every year. And, it's this whole thing. And they sell my favorite thing, hot cider. And Nora's jealous of me because I get hot cider.
Yeah, you and your
very
hot
much
cider.
So.
Yeah,
I don't
rebel.
think Tyler and I have knowingly gone to any haunt that served hot cider. And if we did, we just missed it. But I've been on the lookout for it, and I cannot find it.
It's so good.
And Tyler and I thought we would be smart last year, so we went and bought some fresh hot cider or apple cider, brought it home and put it in the microwave and made it
We're
hot.
like,
and
"Yay,
Bryan
we
said,
have
no,
hot cider."
that is
It's
not the same.
Like hot cider. So you can do that. And like I've come across a few places that are trying to pass that off as hot cider. They just put it into they put it into a thing that's on the hot plate, almost like a coffee machine. They just pour it out. Like, I guess you can do that, but like you're losing so much of what hot cider actually is there, right? Hot cider has cinnamon. It's got some other stuff in it. There's caramel. Oh God, it's so good. Like there's more.
Oh my God.
There's more to hot cider than just hot apple cider. Like, yeah, that's your base, but like, oh God, it's like, think about like a hot chocolate, right? Like, sure, you can have a cup of hot chocolate, but it's not the same as putting a cup of hot chocolate with whipped cream and, cinnamon and whatever, like putting all the fixins in it.
Little chocolate shavings or something on top. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right. You got to have all the good stuff with it to really make it a good experience.
There's a haunt down here. We're real lucky. They've got, I think the name of it is Mike Cheese. Down here in Louisville. It's at American Horrorplex, and they do like craft macaroni and cheese. So they've got like Gouda cheese, and you can get chicken or pork or any kind of meat. Or not, I don't want to say any kind, but like your major kinds of meat on it. You can get bacon and all these different toppings. And like when we know those people are there, like we don't eat before we go to the haunt.
We go
we want to
eat there
plan on eating
intentionally,
there
yeah.
and supporting those guys. But it's just like you were saying earlier, we're lucky if we get food trucks at a lot of places. Like if we get hot dogs and chips, like that's normal. And it's actually above normal because a lot of haunts don't have nothing, or like
They don't have anything. Yeah.
in passing you might be able to pick up a bag of chips and a canned or bottled soda.
Or they do have food, but it's like very expensive.
Yeah.
I went to Crooked Descent last year, and they did different food trucks every week. The weekend we went, there was this guy doing barbecue, and I've never had such good brisket outside of Texas. I got to tell you. Like, holy shit, this was so good. It sold me on going back to the haunt the next time he was there.
Nice.
Heck yeah.
If you're listening to this and you have any part of what kind of food options are available at your haunt and you're a haunter, make sure you have good food at your haunt. Well, and this kind of goes back to the whole Midway thing, too. Things
People
for people
will buy
to do
it, though.
before and after. Yeah.
And make sure your food staff are friendly. Because
Oh,
we went to a haunt.
man.
Yes, please.
We went to a haunt last year, and the lady, they were selling Bang energy drinks, and we'd been out all night, and we decided to throw this last haunt in kind of at the last minute. And I'm sure their staff were tired, but like it was almost $10 for a Bang energy drink, I do believe. And she had a whole cooler full of them. And when I said, what flavors do you had? She was like, I don't know. They're just, Bang. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to pay $10 for it, she's like, do you want one or not? And it was like, sure. And she reached in and just grabbed all of us, just whatever flavor she felt like. So we all ended up with different flavors, and we were like trading them. But I'm like, it's no different than ordering a Pepsi or a Coke or a Mountain Dew. Let us pick what flavor we want.
Yeah, seriously. Like, if I go up there and I say I want a Mountain Dew and you hand me a Diet Pepsi, we're
I mean,
gonna
if
be
it's
fighting.
like included with the ticket price and you're just going to give us a drink, I'm not going to complain about it. But when you're paying for it and it's even more than just going to the gas station, we were just doing it for convenience, then
They're price gouging anyway, yeah.
My God, I would have just turned around and walked away this minute they said $10 for a can of energy drink.
Yeah, it was close to that. It might have been like $8, but it was way more expensive,
Still.
Oh
my God, I think I paid less than that for the brisket. Holy shit.
Oh, wow,
I'm so
yeah.
sorry your job is so tough you have to reach behind you and get a can out of a cooler and give it to us,
Well, we'd gotten food too, and she was just, can we get some napkins? And I think she gave us one. We got something like super messy. It was like, wow, that lady is not enjoying her night at all.
Tiphennie, what you got over here in Washington?
I meant honestly, like, kind of to echo you. So it's not just a New York thing, I think, because Washington is the apple state, so we have a lot of apple cider, a lot of coffee. We have food trucks. Yeah,
It's like
probably.
a northern thing.
But
It's got to be an apple country thing.
I definitely see like a lot of the same things that you were talking about, Bryan. One of them that I did want to mention that I saw definitely like last year while reviewing was like kind of dark rooms or dark attractions springing up. And I don't really remember, like, I remember having like lights out nights. But I'm talking about like where the whole attraction is like pitch black and you can't see anything in front of you. Right. And the concept is to like grope the walls and possibly actors accidentally because they're in there.
Yeah, like your blackout nights and stuff like that.
Right. But having like dedicated rooms and like our team kind of like philosophized. That's not a word. Our team just kind of like came up with this hypothesis that we are seeing more of these because you need less actors. You don't have to worry about set design. You do have to like figure out the maze path situation and make it safe for people, but it cuts down on like the costume, on the makeup, and a lot of like your visuals. So like then you're focusing on that sound or you're focusing on like other senses that is not visual necessarily. But I think it's a cool thing. Like that's considered more of a positive on my end. Mostly because it's inventive, it's different. Like I said, I'm used to like the lights out where you're given like a glow stick. But last year was the first year I saw like straight up haunted rooms and haunted attractions that were always pitch black. The other one that I could think of, and then again, I know this is very unique to our area up here in the Pacific Northwest, is I really enjoy like the local themes playing up with like the environment. So for example, up here there was a couple of haunts that we went to that were purely like nautical, Moby Dick, 7,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
You can't say dick on the
Wow.
podcast.
And then and then we get a lot of pirates. And so again, being really close to the Pacific Ocean, I think they're very inventive. Even though we see it a lot, and it could be kind of like a played out theme. Like, I just really like that kind of creativity and considering the region instead of like having a nautical theme in the middle of the Rocky Mountains.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I think out of all the haunts we've been to in like the last 5 years, we've only gone to one with pirates. And they're in Michigan. So, I mean, technically they're kind of close to some bigger water, I guess, but not like. Yeah.
Lake pirates.
They're lake pirates, yes.
Yeah, I wish we'd see some more of that too. Like we've got USS Nightmare.
Yeah, but they don't make sense
They're
for us.
nautical and pirate stuff because they're on the river. But like, and then you've got your Dent Schoolhouse. They're in an old schoolhouse, and there was Legend at Pope Lick, and they played on the Goatman monster off of the Pope Lick Park, and that was kind of a local legend. So that was very location specific.
Seeing the haunts and taking their atmosphere of their actual area and trying to utilize that is really cool. I wish we saw that more.
Yeah, I don't see a lot that's, local legends or anything like that. I guess because, Central New York just sucks in every way.
Well, they still have apple cider, though. Warm apple cider.
Oh, God, yes, we do. Hot apple cider.
Yeah. I'd have to make mine warm, but yeah.
So we did ask the other teams within our Facebook group, and, some of them did get back to us about what they're seeing in their parts of the country. In West Virginia, one of our teams reported that they're seeing a lot of slides. And I've seen this before. And I can only hope that the slides they're seeing are better than the one that I have seen, because the one I saw was like, hey, we have a slide. And that was it. Like, great, you have it. Now what? So like, I hope that, the slides are getting worked into better parts of the haunt for them.
Probably the best one we've seen was at Stillwell Manor, which at the time of this recording was in an old movie theater. They
may have to
move, but yeah. So like, you walk upstairs and there's like this medical outbreak type of theme going on, but then like there's a sewer section that you go into, and like the slide is part of the sewer system. So like they kind of roped it in that way, but then when you get to the bottom, you're in Clown Town. So that was kind of weird, but
it sounded really good until you got to that, and I went, oh yeah, it drops you into a big ball pit in Clown Town.
Yeah.
But anyway.
There's a couple, and there was one down in Kentucky we went to after you got out of the doll factory, I think, and they just kind of like tacked a slide onto the end because it was a 2-story barn, and that was your way to get back down to the first level. But yeah.
I've only seen one haunt out here in Portland that uses a slide. Like, slides are not a thing.
Yeah, it's so hard to incorporate correctly, I think, or to incorporate it well.
So we know you have your hot cider. What else are you noticing up there?
Yeah. So our team, so the other team here in New England, I say here in New England. New York isn't part of New England. Ask anyone from New England. New York's not part of that shit. So our team in New England, Hallowen, he mentioned that he's seeing a lot of outdoor haunts versus indoor. And I can confirm that is true here in New York as well. I think it's more of a Northeast thing, because fall is a really like celebrated time of year in this area. So, I think a lot of places are trying to center themselves to be more outdoors and celebrate that whole outdoor sort of theme. I think part of that too is just like, it's so hard to get a big enough building to house all of the things you want to house.
Could be.
Whereas it's a lot easier to just buy a vacant piece of land and build whatever you want to build on it. And also, building permits for, permanent structures, that sort of thing is going to be a lot harder to get, especially
fire codes.
Yeah, especially in the states of like New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, maybe not Maine so much, but like New Hampshire, definitely. the states that are much more, I guess, blue on the political spectrum are going to have just probably more restrictions, regulations, and hoops you have to jump through in general to, get building permits. Whereas, when you go to the Midwest and they're more red on the political spectrum, it seems that, there's fewer restrictions in terms of getting permits to build or to do a lot of things where we really have to jump through a lot of hoops up this way.
Yeah, you and your hot cider. We do get deep fried Oreos.
The hot cider, definitely the hot cider.
Like I told him, we get deep fried Oreos. So.
Oh God, yeah, we get those too.
Damn it!
It's not super common, but New York State Fair, deep fried Oreos. Also,
That's not at a haunt though.
They bring a lot of the same vendors to some haunts. But yeah, I mean, it's a common enough thing. Also, like, we have New York specific things. Like, I can go get my Utica greens.
I don't know what that is.
And
so
there's some vendors that do a really good job with Utica greens.
Okay.
The next time you guys are up this way, we're going to get some Utica greens. Yeah. In Chicago, Nancy and Mario have said that they're seeing a lot of sliders. We talked about this a little bit, so these guys, they wear knee pads or whatever, and when they slide on the concrete, it throws sparks and stuff. I don't know, I guess, like, if they're being used to good effects, like, that's a good thing, but it seems like...
Well, we've been to we've probably been to about 10 haunts in Mario and Nancy's area, and the best part about some of those attractions is that those sliders are actually in the haunt. So, like, you'll be walking down a hallway, and the next thing you know, there'll be an actress walking on rails, like, halfway up the wall, and she'll jump down, land on her knees, and go sliding across the floor.
You'll just hear...
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. The sound effect with it is what gets you almost more than the sound effect combined with somebody hurtling at you at a high rate of speed. Yeah, it's quite startling.
Their haunts over there, in general, their actors are a lot more physical, and I think all the way around. But
I mean, sliding in and of itself is a physical activity to do. Like, I used to be a slider, and it's not hardcore because you're pretty padded, but yeah, like, being able to get up like enough momentum, and if you wear skates or you create like stuff that has those sparks, and you have to have a very specific environment. Like, the whole purpose is to kind of like do the down low scares and like just make horrible sound coming out. And so I used to, in the environment that I was slid in, like, they had a whole bunch of fog that hit us. That was like a lot harder because you're kind of battling that fog yourself. So you're just kind of just hoping and going into a direction that you're not going to run into people, or people are not going to run into you before you could pop up. Yeah, sliders are cool.
Yeah, like I said, if it's used to good effect, like, I think that's a really cool thing, but I could see how it could be totally overdone because it's one effect. And it's like, if that's a majority of what you got, then, like, yeah, that's cool, but, like, what else?
Yeah, those are usually reserved for some of the, I would even say, I mean, I know your Q actors or some of your higher up on your actor things, or they can be, they'll promote them and make them a line actor, and then these guys are, I don't want to give them all a big head and say they're a tier up, but yeah, they're good about observing when people are they don't have their guard up or that sort of thing, and catching them by surprise.
One of our favorite sliders in the area, they gave him a chainsaw last year. So that was a great combination.
Oh, yeah.
That's
There's
awesome.
A whole craft behind it.
Speaking of chainsaws, our team in Ohio is saying that they're seeing a lot of lackluster finales. And, I would assume that is to mean that they're just seeing a lot of chainsaws and a lot of like, chainsaw, I'm going to cut you up. All right, get the fuck out of here.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
sometimes it's not even
they visit
that.
a lot of multi-attractions, and that's probably another trend we're seeing inside the haunts is like your big multi-attractions that are running 4 haunts with separate queue lines. They're not putting anything at the end of those. Or if they do, it's like something like a big animatronic. And again, it's just kind of placed ineffectively. There's nobody to come out on the left side to try to scare you or anything.
Yeah, a lot of them, unfortunately, they just like drop off and you're like, oh, I guess that was the
or
end.
back out to the midway. Awesome.
Now we have to sit and think about what we're going to call the finale. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that's I'm seeing that at the multi-attraction haunts as well. I think that's going to be more common across the country is when you've got 4 or 5 houses that you're trying to run, and you can't necessarily put a big, huge finale on all of them. But yeah, I can sympathize with that. Seeing finales that are not really a finale.
You got to have some kind of little punch at the end, though.
Yeah, I mean, a little something. One last scare that's maybe a little bit bigger or louder than the rest. Something there.
Yeah.
The ones that bother me is the long hallway out of like the corn maze or long hallway out of the room, where you almost have a scene that's vacant. So your finale would be the scene before, and then you just kind of exit.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess it's more of a resource problem there. How do you get actors to get how do you get more actors to get into that space, and how do you fill it correctly, and then what do you do with your finale? And I think there's some creative solutions out there.
Oh, absolutely, we've seen them.
Oh yeah, Nightmare on Edgewood did that here a couple of years ago. Of course, they had a laser swamp, but they did it very, very well and had the big alligator actomatronics in the right spaces. But then, like, they had that long tunnel, but instead of just being a long instead of just being a long dark hallway, they would kind of continue the swamp theme a little bit through there with the vegetation, but then they also put the sliding floors in there. So not only are you panicking and struggling to get away from this giant monster, you're also tripping all over your own feet because the floors are moving out from under you.
And it's foggy and dark, and yeah.
All right, well, are there any other trends across the country that you guys are noticing?
I think that's all the notes that we had. And
Vaping clowns.
Vaping clowns.
Yeah. Let's not get into
That's
that.
a topic for a different day.
Yeah. So for anybody joining us for the first time, we are the scarefactor.com. Yes, you can find us at thescarefactor.com. We have a shop that you can access from the website. You can listen to all our podcasts, Season 1 and what we have up of Season 2 so far. You can buy all sorts of branded merch of your favorite teams. You can do all that great stuff. You can also find us on the socials at The Scare Factor, at Team Skelligore, at Team Terratechies. I think I got all those right, yeah. Oh, and at Team Zombillies. I think I got all those right, yeah?
So.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
Did I fuck up anyone's handle?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think you're
Nope.
good.
Good. Yeah, so drop us a like, drop us a follow. We're always pimping out the podcast and all that good stuff. And if you've got any suggestions for the next episode, or something you'd like to hear us discuss in the future, let us know, because if we don't know, we're going to talk about some weird shit, man.
Yep.
And it's going to be your fault that you didn't tell us.
And
Like, I wanted to hear about this other thing. So
Right? It's pretty easy to get a hold of us. It all comes right to Nora and I's cell phones, and we can definitely take it all into consideration. And if you're listening to this podcast and looking for other ways to get your haunt fixed, don't forget to check out the YouTube channel. Last year we went pretty hot and heavy getting a lot of our YouTube recaps and walkthroughs put on there, and we're still working on putting stuff out here through the rest of the year. So
We'll be doing 4 partial walkthroughs next week.
yes, we will. So definitely check that out and subscribe here to the podcast, and hopefully we will see you on the next episode. Until then, stay scary.